Okay, we just finished up how to budget our money, and we started talking about checking accounts and keeping track of our money that way. I gave you 2 extra sheets of paper. One is how to write a check, and one is how to balance your checkbook. These are going to be your homework papers. I already asked you to fill out the needs and the wants paper. That's also going to be your homework paper. So you'll have 3 sheets to turn in. Trying to find the needs and wants paper. Looks like I might have already moved it off my table, but you probably remember what I'm talking about. Fill out your needs and wants paper, fill out your check paper, and balance your checkbook paper. Those are your 3 assignments to turn in next week. If you need help with them, you can ask a parent to help you. Let's look at the writing a check homework paper. It looks like this. Now mine is colored. When I copied your paper, you guys had black and white. But this is the one that I'm talking about, where it says write a check up here at the top. Okay? Let's just talk our way through that. All right, it says in the top, you are buying a pair of jeans at the Mart for $47.83. We're going to learn how to correctly write this check in 6 simple steps. Number 1, and what's nice is where it says number 1 here at the bottom, it also has the number 1 here where it's talking about on the check. Pretty easy to understand. Number 1 says enter the date. So right up there on the date thing, on the date line, you need to write the month, the day, and the year. You can write it out in words like January 4, 2013, or you can write 01/04/2013. Doesn't matter. Just as long as you have a date. That way, you know what? I've had my big kids actually lose checks that they've gotten as gifts, and then they find them a year later when they've organized their rooms. And sometimes a bank won't honor a check that's over a year old. Sometimes over 6 months old, but usually they will honor it within a year. So it's important that you write a date. You don't want to write a check with no date and then 20 years later somebody cashes a big check that they should have done 20 years ago. I know that's a little crazy, but it also helps keep track when you look in your bank statement of, it keeps things in order of the way of the times in which you purchase things. I've purchased things sometimes and forgot to write other information on my check to remind me what it was. But then I would look at the date and go, oh yeah, I was on vacation on that day. So that was probably this vacation expense. So dates can be important. Number 2, on the number 2 line where it says pay to the order of, you're going to write the name of the person or the company that you're paying the check to. So let's say that I, Mrs. Martins, am going to pay Mrs. Rammerth a check because she's such a good co-teacher. I just think she deserves a little money. I don't know. So I would write Mrs. Rammerth's name on line number 2, pay to Mrs. Rammerth, and I want to spell it correctly. Although my name is Mrs. Martins and it's spelled Martens, and a lot of people don't spell my name right. They spell it IN or INS, and that's not right. But you know what? The bank usually, if it's close, will go ahead and give it to you. Okay, number 3. To the right of the pay to the order line is a little white box. You can see that on your paper. In that little white box, you use the numbers for the amount of money that you're paying to the person or business that you wrote into the pay to the order of line. So I'm going to give Mrs. Rammerth $50 because I want her to be able to go out to eat with her husband and have a nice meal on me. So I put a 50.00 in the white box so that Mrs. Rammerth gets $50 from my checking account. All right, number 4, the next line is used to confirm that amount that you wrote in the little white box. So you write it out in words. This is why we practice writing our number words when we're younger. So I would write the word 50, F-I-F-T-Y, and then I would write the word and then I would put 0, 0, / 100. So that it would mean that I was paying her $50 and no cents. If I were going to pay her $50.25, it would say 50, the word, and the word, and then I would put 25 over 100, and the 100 is representing a dollar. 25 of my 100 cents. It's a fraction. Okay, so that's line number 4. And then what you want to do after you've written out what you put in the white box in words, once you've written that out, you need to make a squiggly line or straight line, but go from your words all the way to the end. And you know why? Because some people have had check fraud done where somebody who wasn't honest got a hold of their check and they wrote other words on there. And they tried to make the check look like it was for something bigger. So you don't want to leave any space for any new words to get in there. You want it to be just $50. So put a long line so no one else can write anything else on that line. All right, number 5 is the memo line. The memo line is just for you. Not for the bank, it's just for you. So that way you can write down what it is that check is for. And in the example, they say that at a department store, you paid for jeans and shoes and socks and a sweater 3 different times. That's probably not true. So you probably would have all of those pieces of clothing and then go to the checkout line. But I did think this is so true for me when I write checks to Capital Baptist, because sometimes I'm writing it for Kennedy Center tickets, sometimes I'm writing it for a pizza lunch, sometimes I'm writing it for the drama class fees, and it can be different things, but it's all going to Capital Baptist. So I write on my memo line what it's for, so that way when I see it come through my statement, I'm like, oh yeah, that was for drama, because usually I forgot by then, and that helps me remember. Number 6 is the signature line, and this is where you sign your name. And you're not supposed to print your name, so it is important to write in cursive sometimes. So you have to figure out a way that you're going to sign your name when you're a grown-up. Sign your name the same way all the time. And when you've opened your checking account, they've had you sign a little card that the bank keeps on file. And if there's ever any question, did she really write that check? Then they will check your signature on the check against the card at the bank. It's important that you sign your name the same way and in cursive when you sign your checks. Now, at the very bottom of the check, they didn't talk about this on the paper, but do you see all of these numbers right here? Remember when I said that my job sends my money to my bank? These numbers are called routing numbers, and they say this is this specific bank. And then some of the numbers after would be your checking account number and then probably your check number. See how it says 123 at the end? And look at the check number up here, 123. So this is all just information for the bank, but written in numbers. That's all that it means. All right, now if you had any trouble filling out your check, please have your mom and dad help you. This needed to be done in pencil. I should have said that from the beginning. So if you haven't done it, you'd actually use a pen when you write a real check. But just in case you make mistakes, go ahead and write this check in pencil. So ask mom and dad for help if you need it, okay? All right, I only have a couple minutes here, but let's talk about the balancing your checking account. This is a check register that sometimes you see in your mom and dad's checking account in their little pocket holder that has a thing. Sometimes mom and dads just keep a record on their computer. That's what I do. All right. In the checking account, you're going to look at this blank register. That's just what the graph is on the bottom, called a register. And you're going to record all of these instructions right here, okay? You have 10 different things that you're going to record, and you have to record them on the 10 lines down here. The first one is your beginning balance. So what I do, it says your balance on October 29th is $237.47. So on the date line, write 10/29. That's the date, 10/29. Then I write beginning balance. You can just write balance if you want, but balance. And then over here in just the balance column, write 237 in the first big part and 47 cents in the skinny part. All right, then the rest of these instructions, you're probably going to need some help with. If you think you're familiar enough to know what to do with payments and deposits, you can go ahead and give it a try. But could you have your mom and dad check over it just to make sure you got it right? Do this one in pencil as well, and then we'll check and see how you did. All right? Thanks. Have fun.